Morning, guys. So I got some very clever TikToks yesterday and some interesting wanted listeners. It was nice to see your creativity through that assignment. So good job with that. Today we are continuing our unit, Native America and Colonization. And today we're going to focus specifically on Native American cultures. So for a lot of this unit, we'll be talking about the process of colonization, the effects of colonization on Native cultures. But today we're going to try to understand what Native cultures were like even before Europeans colonized, before Europeans began that process of colonization, before Europeans ever got to the Americas. So let's go to the learning target. I will be able to analyze artifacts in order to describe Native American cultures before European colonization. Let's start with the word colonization because that should be familiar to us from the past couple of days. We know ization words refer to a process. If you see a word end in ization, it means it refers to a process. We've gone over that the past 2 days. Colonization is specifically the process of taking over lands / people. The process of taking over land / people. We know from the last couple of days that, I'm going to try to tilt the camera down. You know what, that's not going to work great. I take it back, guys, I'm sorry. We know from the past couple of days that Europeans began this process of colonization by taking over the land that's currently known as North and South America. Let's look at other main terms in this target, because we have colonization, but we don't have actually European colonization. That phrase European colonization simply means the process of people from Europe, the process of people from Europe taking over lands and people. Let's go now to other terms in our target. Let's think about culture. If we think about the different aspects, or just pause for a minute, and let's think about what are the different aspects, the different factors that make up culture. Think in your brain. You might have come up with food, language. Someone this morning said traditions. Another person said clothing / footwear, shoes, religion, right? So there are many different aspects of culture. In this learning target, we also have the word artifact. Now, you should have completed your RTL already before watching this video, but I'm going to assume that you have completed your RTL. Your RTL mentioned the word artifact, and in your RTL, you were looking at an artifact. That coat was an artifact. It was a human-made object, from the past. A human-made object from the past. That's all an artifact is. When we look at artifacts, look at human-made objects from the past, we can learn a lot about a group's history or a group's culture just by looking at artifacts from the past, just by looking at artifacts from the past. So today, you will be analyzing artifacts. You're going to be analyzing human-made objects from the past in order to describe Native American cultures before European colonization. So much of our unit is going to be focused on the encounter when European colonizers and Native populations meet. But today and tomorrow, we're only focusing on the cultures of Native Americans. We're only focusing on Native American culture. So what was Native culture like before Europeans ever got here? Before Europeans ever colonized the US, what was Native culture like? What kinds of foods did they rely on? What kinds of traditions did they have? What kind of housing? What kind of housing did they use? How did they lead their lives? Our goal today is to understand Native cultures a little bit better today before Europeans ever before Europeans ever reach the Americas. So I've quickly got a video that I want to show you before we move into today's main activity instructions. I've got a brain pop video that I do want to show you.
It's a monument to the American Indians who fought in the Battle of Little Bighorn. Pretty impressive, huh? Dear Tim and Moby, what can you tell me about American Indians? From Milo. Well, the first thing you should know is that the term Indian is really a mistake. When Christopher Columbus first landed in the Americas in 1492, he was sure he had reached India. So he used the term Indians to refer to the people he met on shore. Of course, he was wrong about where he was, but the name stuck. Since then, a number of terms have been used to identify the land's original inhabitants and their descendants living today. Well, they originally came from Asia. Most of them probably crossed a land bridge that used to exist in the Bering Strait between Alaska and Russia. There's still some debate about when the first people came over, but it was definitely more than 10,000 years ago. These first immigrants gradually developed into thousands of separate societies, each with its own language and culture. Some tribes were nomadic. That means they moved with the seasons, following the animals they depended on for food. Other groups mastered farming, allowing them to build permanent settlements. In Central and South America, the Aztec, Maya, and Inca formed highly complex civilizations. Their societies included large cities with organized governments and religions. The place we now call the United States became home to a huge number of tribes. For example, in the Northwest, tribes like the Kwakwaka'wakw and the Chinookan lived through hunting and fishing. In the Southwest, the Pueblo and Navajo managed to farm in the desert through irrigation. They lived in buildings made with various types of dried mud, including adobe, a kind of clay brick. In the Great Plains, tribes like the Sioux hunted for bison and other large animals. In the Southeast, the Mississippian people built villages with flattened pyramids, known as platform mounds. And in the Northeast, 6 Iroquois nations united under a constitution called the Great Law of Peace. Many historians believe the United States Constitution borrowed some ideas from it. Oh sure, Alaska has been home to quite a few native groups over the years, and plenty still live there today. Alaska native groups include the Inuit, the Yupik, and the Tlingit. Well, unfortunately, many of the Native American civilizations are gone now. There are many reasons. Some of them were killed by invaders, and lots more died of diseases brought to the New World by Europeans.
So your job today is to learn a little bit about various cultural regions, different Native American cultural regions. So first, let's clarify that term, cultural region. Many thousands of years before Christopher Columbus's ships landed in the Bahamas, a different group of people discovered America, the ancestors of modern Native Americans who hiked over a land bridge from Asia to what is now Alaska more than 12,000 years ago. When the ancestors of Native Americans arrived in North America, they became the first people to settle these lands. The first people to settle in a specific area are called the indigenous people of that area. In fact, by the time European adventurers arrived in the 1400s and 1500s, more than 50 million people were already living in North and South America in different culture regions, meaning physical areas lived in by people who share similar cultural characteristics. We can learn a lot about Native American cultures by studying artifacts. Artifacts are objects made by humans that tell us something about a group's history or culture. Our job today is to become experts in one cultural region. So there are hundreds of different Native American communities living in each cultural region. There are hundreds of Native communities living in the Woodlands region, hundreds of Native American communities living in the Great Plains region. Your job is to figure out what is similar amongst communities that live in the Woodlands region, what is similar amongst Native American communities that live in the Great Plains region. And you're going to do that through an analysis of artifacts. So scroll to the 3rd page, and you'll find your artifact analysis chart. Directions. What can resources and artifacts tell us about a place or the people living in it? Resources and artifacts can help us understand how people lived during a certain time period in a specific place. The artifacts and resources in the chart below were all made by Native Americans from a specific cultural region. Using the descriptions of various Native American cultural regions and your analysis of the artifacts/resources, identify the cultural region the people who made the artifacts in each row came from. All of the artifacts pictured below are actually created or used by the first people to inhabit, to live in North America, Native Americans. Your first step here is to pick one chart. So there are 3 charts here. There's a chart that's related to the Great Plains cultural region, the Pacific Northwest cultural region, and the Woodlands region. You are not becoming an expert in all 3 cultural regions, only in one. So pick one cultural region to become an expert in. Let's say you pick the Pacific Northwest. The artifacts look interesting to you, and you'd like to do Pacific Northwest. That's great. That means you are only filling in chart B. Any additional chart that you complete is considered extra credit. We are working on this for 2 days. This is a 2-day lesson. So tomorrow in live class, we will continue to work on the chart that you used today. However, if you did complete an entire chart, you do have the opportunity to do an additional chart and receive a 15 out of 10 on this assignment. So before you begin filling in your chart, you're going to need to read the text about your cultural region, because as of now, you don't necessarily know anything about the cultural region called the Great Plains. You might not know anything about the cultural region called the Pacific Northwest or the Woodlands region. Your first responsibility is to read through the text on your selected cultural region. After you've read through the text, then you're ready to look at the artifacts and answer all 3 questions included in the graphic organizer. These pictures are obviously very small. I encourage you to look at the larger version of the artifact pictures. You can click on the link that's called Artifact Pictures in order to access a larger version of these pictures.